Welcome to my overview of information technology. I'm Jason Ewing, Interim Chief Information Officer for UHS, and this video is for the IT staff. And I hope you guys enjoy a little bit of a flavor of what information technology components and functions are. This we built off of the CoBIT model, which I'll share with you here in just a second. So I hope you like it, and here we go. So CoBIT is a framework, and it's housed with ISACA. So you can look up isaca.org, and you can go and become a member. They got a lot of cool tools, CoBIT stuff, all sorts of things. It's a great learning place if you get a chance to. But what CoBIT is, and this is CoBIT version 5, is it goes through and it helps enterprises create optimal value for IT by maintaining a balance between realizing benefits and optimizing risk levels and resources. So you'll notice that as I go through here too, you'll see words like realizing is spelled kind of odd and weird, is because it's an international framework, and they'll use more of the spelling from England or other areas that spell things just a little bit different, so you're going to have to bear with that part. The other piece here is CoBIT also enables the information and related technologies to be governed and managed in a holistic manner across the whole enterprise, so they can start taking advantage of the functional areas and responsibilities, both internal and external stakeholders of IT. The last piece overall of CoBIT, they establish a set of principles and enablers that are generic enough that any industry, any enterprise, any organization, public, non-public, commercial, not-for-profits, anybody can use it. So the thing I like about CoBIT is enough that you can apply it to your area. So let's dive in here. First thing that we need to understand are what capabilities are, and that'll help set the stage for the coming slides here. So a capability is very simple. It's the ability to manage an objective that you're trying to achieve. So let me give you an example, and I'll give you kind of an HR example here. All right. An objective might be recruit, retain, and achieve high levels of employee satisfaction. That might be their objective. So you look at, okay, well, what are those capabilities then to manage that objective? And here's an example, just a few of them. You got maybe under this main category of human resources, you got personnel management. You got electronic employee records management, applicant tracking, compensation management. How do we manage job descriptions? All again pointed to aim at this objective to recruit, retain, and achieve high levels of employee satisfaction. So that's what a capability, these are capabilities down here. So we're going to take a dive into CoBIT builds these capabilities out, and we'll show you what those look like holistically for IT. So with that, there are 5 domains that these capabilities are housed in. Domain number 1 is kind of the evaluate, direct, and monitor. And it's kind of around the governance of IT and the capabilities that surround that. The next is aligning IT's capabilities, ensuring that we're planning properly and we organize in the right ways to delivering those capabilities. And then there's the capabilities of building, acquiring, and implementing. The fourth is the delivery, service, and support arm. And the last is monitoring, evaluating, and assessing capabilities. So let's take a look at the broken into this, what those capabilities are for IT. So under the evaluate, direct, and monitor, you have things like ensure benefits are delivered, ensuring risk is optimized as it relates to the governance of IT. There's clear stakeholder transparency on things. And you'll notice as we go through as you'll see me, as we lead forward, I will start leaning a little bit more on becoming a little more transparent to our governance and stakeholders. What this looks like is, what is our project portfolio? What is our application portfolio? And how is that broken up by service line in the organization? So they begin to look at what the technology is required to support their areas. And that's what we call ensuring stakeholder transparency. There's nothing secretive, there's nothing, special. It's just being transparent, because these systems help support the organization and our ability to deliver those things. The next area is the align, plan, and organize. They call them the APOs. And you'll notice here it says APO 01. This is the first capability. And then you see here APO 02 deals with managing the strategy of IT. Where are we going? What's our plan? Another capability is around managing our architecture. So what that looks like is, how do our systems integrate? How are they designed? When we look at a single patient record and we want to bring on another technology, say we don't have this here, but say for home health, and we got to make sure that if there's a separate application for home health, that it ties to our single patient record. That's the architecting side. From an infrastructure standpoint, it's architecting our storage in a way that images that are stored can be retrieved in short-term fast disk retrieval, so that physicians or radiologists can get those images much quicker. And then looking at that going, okay, in the first 6 to 8 months, they'll probably go back and look at those images. So we call that near storage or short-term storage or archive. And then you have long-term. So they don't go after those images often. So they'll build those out into a less expensive, slower moving disk. They're not accessed that often. It's not super critical like in accessing. And we got to architect that. And so a lot of those things come into that space. Down here you'll see managing our suppliers, our quality, managing IT risk as a whole, managing our budgets, managing security. So these are all things that deal with align, plan, and organize. Down here you'll see build, acquire, and implement. Okay, manage programs and projects. One of the reasons we have a PMO is building that capability out. You'll see down here manage and BAI 10, managing our configurations. So where do we document? Where do we put our configurations of our technologies? Where's that stored at? And if there's changes, how do we change that configuration? Ensure that the integrity of it keeps the value in the organization with high availability, and it's useful. You'll notice down here is managing assets. These things don't call out specifically managing certain assets like, all of the cell phones, or it's assets overall. Applications are assets, hardware's assets. So, and then you'll see here, how do we manage changes to the environment? So down here in the delivery, service, and support, this is kind of the core of a lot of things that we do on a day-to-day basis. For example, I'll use this one as we go through, but managing service requests and incidents. Okay, how do we do that? How do we manage problems? Okay, managing business process controls that impact the technology to make sure that that the systems are built right and we're not affecting those things. So, and then over here to the right is what we call the monitor, evaluate, and assess. Okay, evaluate and assess systems of internal controls. What types of controls do we have in place for managing access rights and ensuring that people have need-to-know rights or role-based security to those things? And that's what this area helps. So there's about 37 of these capabilities, ability to deliver on an objective. So These kinds of things are what makes up in totality. You could probably take anything that we do in IT and align it into one of these. The last piece to this is you can go through and you can do self-assessments and assess where you are as an IT department as it relates to maturity. So like level 0 is considered everything's ad hoc. So for example, if we're managing assets, and they'll go through and give you some criteria around it and say, how well do we manage our assets? Well, we're just kind of ad hoc. We don't have solid policies in place. Our practices aren't the same, those kinds of things. And so you can evaluate your own organization. And the beautiful thing about that is it allows you to kind of look at where your hot spots are and determine exactly where you might want to focus your IT department's energies and efforts. So let's go to the next slide here. I'm going to break this down and go one step deeper. So I'm going to look at delivery, service, and support as it relates to managed service requests and incidents. So inside of CoBIT, it breaks it down and helps give some definition to this capability. And every one of these has this framework. And the first part of it talks about the purpose. So it'll give you the process description around this. And for example, provide timely and effective response to user requests and resolutions of all types and of incidents. Normal services, record and fulfill user requests, and record, investigate, diagnose, escalate, and resolve incidents. That's the description of this. Now let's look at what the purpose of the process is. And it's to achieve increased productivity and minimize disruptions through quick resolution of user queries and incidents. So when we look at that purpose, and that gives us the eyes and view from the customer to say, okay, how do we build processes in place that minimize disruptions, and how do we quickly resolve the issues from the users there. So then you can back in and design how you want to do that. The next part of this whole process component of this capability and this definition of these things, it'll give you some descriptions, of what those are. And those things are related to things like you see here, incidents are resolved according to agreed upon service levels. Well, you can look at that from a maturity standpoint and go, well, do we even have service levels? If we don't, we got to go build them. But it gives you the guide here of the things that you need to do. You look at the number 1 here, it says IT-related services are available for use. Okay, when are the service requests and incident services available? When can I access them? 24 hours a day? 5 days a week? 7 days a week? Only on any days but holidays? You got to define those things of when those services will be there. The next section is what we get into what's called base practices. And these are the fundamental base components to put in place. And let me give you just some simple examples here. You can look at base practice number 2 for this that talks about record, classify, and prioritize your requests and incidents. You get down here, look at base practice 5, talks about resolve and recover from incidents. Well, what's our processes related to that? How do we resolve and how do we recover? Let me give you an example. If we have a data center that goes down, how do we recover from that? What's the order by which systems come back up so that interfaces are turned on and functioning appropriately so that the users can be back on as quickly as possible? If we don't have those kinds of things on our systems, then we put at risk our ability to recover quickly and get systems back online. So we back into that and say, what are our processes around that? And what are we doing? And it's what we do for everybody and how we deliver those services. Part of the thing is of this capability, it helps us define what we call work product inputs and outputs. And so this input, right, starts to look at things like risk related to root causes of these things, incidents, for example. A configuration repository, so we know how systems are configured and built. And we also know what systems are connected to it, so we know if we have an outage, we know downstream where some of those problems are. And that's what a CMDB, a configuration management database, will do for you. And Sharewell has that capability. Here at UHS, we just haven't built it out to take advantage of that. So on the other side here, you have the outputs, right? And these are defining the rules. If you look at work product practice number 2, here it says work product number 2, excuse me, rules for incidents and request escalations. So do we as an IT department have rules for this? And how do we know what our escalation paths are? And is that consistent across all of our teams by all of our systems? So we have to learn how to classify our systems to know what's most important. Here's ones around service requests, and those are processes regarding fulfillment of those service requests. How do we do that? Above that, you'll see how do service requests get approved, that we go forward. Just because they show up, what's the process for making sure that our resources are going to be working on that and not something else? And that's part of governance as well. So with that, it's a quick overview. It's a quick understanding of everything from what our capabilities are in IT, distilled down into clarity and descriptions around these things that allow an organization to start to build out and be intentional about what areas they do want to build out. So I hope this was helpful as we kind of work together. Please go back and view this video again if you missed something or maybe need to review it again. I definitely can send out some of the documentation around this to help you out, and I hope this was helpful. Thanks, guys.